Today I have yet another update regarding this fake Red Michael Jordan PMG because BGS have come out and confirmed what we already knew, and that is the fact that the card is fake. It's an altered base card that they've gone ahead and mislabeled incorrectly, or labeled incorrectly, I should say. Now this is obviously pretty interesting. If you haven't seen my other videos, please do check them out. But basically, a card got listed on eBay, a Red Michael Jordan PMG that looked incredibly suspicious. Adam Gray made a reel. I made some videos. From there, the card sold for $23,000. The buyer saw our videos and got a little bit concerned and started to ask a few questions. He worked with me and Adam to sort of dig a bit deeper on the situation, worked with eBay and now BGS, and finally got a response from BGS that this thing was in fact altered. Now, what's quite interesting about this is that BGS have come out and said it was mislabeled and they graded it correctly. It just was a breakdown in their label department, apparently, which raises a lot of suspicions with their grading process, but it's not something that we haven't seen before. It's not new. We've seen mistakes like this happen at PSA as well. It's just sort of a little bit interesting that they were, able to make a mistake like that on a card of this value. Now, Ben basically gave that update today. He did say there's going to be a phone call between him and, eBay and BGS at some point in the next week. I think he said Wednesday, US time, where they're going to talk about next steps, like how is he going to get his money back? What does it mean for the card? What does it mean for the original submitter? What's going to happen next? And Ben, through some discussion with me, has a few questions he wants to ask of BGS and eBay himself. One that I can share with you now is going to be around, well, what does it mean, for, lower value cards? Because, this is obviously a high profile card, so it was able to get the attention of BGS and eBay. But for something that is a little bit more minor and it's hard to get eyes on it, what does it mean for the person buying it? Because you've got eBay relying on BGS, and BGS have made a mistake and they're not going to stand by their work 9 times out of 10. So, what does it mean for the collector? What does it mean for the hobby? How can we rely on eBay's program? How can we rely on BGS and all that sort of stuff? And I think he also did mention that one in his update video today, but there's a few others that he and I are discussing about, maybe trying to raise with BGS, and we can talk to that a little bit later on. I've asked him to come on and do an interview on the channel. He has agreed. So, we'll talk through those hopefully then. I'm hoping this will go down in the next week or two. It's basically going to happen once everything settles and he's basically got his money back and all that kind of stuff, once the whole case is closed, essentially. And we'll sort of go from there. I have, a number of questions for him, and I'm assuming you guys do as well. So if you do have any, please drop them in the comments below. I'll probably just try and take the ones that have the most likes, or if there's not that many, I'll just talk through them all anyway. But I want to try and get to the bottom of this. I'm assuming you guys are going to have a heck of a lot of questions on this situation, in particular around him, maybe his relationship with the seller, if there is any. I'm reading the comments and people are very suspicious of what's going down here, and he seems, to be very open and transparent, and he seems like a really good guy. So he's willing to come on and talk through this and understand this a bit further and trying to get, a positive outcome for the hobby as a whole. I'm, quite confident that he's probably not related to this seller in any way, shape or form. I did have my suspicions, like I said in my last video, but this is just a quite, an unfortunate situation it looks like. So hopefully Beckett can answer those questions and we can actually get, some understanding as to what's going to happen here moving forward. But it's just one of those things that, we need to sort of get some insight on, because it's been a bit of a gray area. So like I said, I'm rambling. He's going to come on and do an interview. Let me know what questions you want down below. But to give you some, taste of what, things I'd like to ask of Beckett is, why they sort of needed to have the card in hand in first place. One of the things they confirmed to Ben was that they graded it, altered, correctly. They knew it was a base card colored in. They knew somebody altered it, but they accidentally mislabeled it. So if they knew by their own grading records, that they mislabeled it, why were they playing so coy with Ben when they were trying to say, well, we need to get the card in hand to understand what went wrong? Obviously, they want to double check their work and all that kind of thing, but they basically come in and says clear as day that the label was wrong, and they sort of already knew that. So it's like, well, if you already knew that, why didn't you do anything sooner? Why did you allow eBay to go through the program in the first place? Why did you not contact eBay earlier to try and get the card in hand and just cancel it from the get-go? It's a bit suspicious and looks a little bit, convenient on Beckett's part, in my opinion. I think they, just genuinely made a mistake, and they're trying to maybe cover their tracks or trying to squash it down a little bit to maybe give them a bit more confidence about what their process looks like, i.e., well, we did the right thing, but we just did this and we wanted to double check it. It's like, well, I don't think you did the right thing. I think you completely messed up, and now you're just trying to save face. So that's one question I'd like to ask of them or understand a bit further. I think the other thing, and the more pressing thing on this one is, is the original submitter up to hanky-panky here? Is the person who sold the card doing some hanky-panky? Because like we touched on, I think, in the most recent update, the guy's sales history had some very suspicious cards in there. There was a number of Michael Jordan jambalayas, which is insane. He had a number of, cards labeled as reprint and test print and all that kind of stuff in the title. indicating that the guy's maybe printing his own cards or has, you know, a lot of fakes on board that he's trying to offload. And we see that happen a lot where people use like RP and reprints and test prints and all that sort of stuff in the title to try and move fake cards. So the fact that all those things are maybe in his eBay listing don't necessarily say that he's a scammer or anything like that. But the fact that you've got this card here that's clearly altered, has he submitted any other cards to BGS? And that's what I'd like BGS to answer, because they can clearly see what else this guy has sent in the past. And if they can sort of see in this submission with a fake Michael Jordan PMG, some other cards that they've rejected as altered, some other cards they've rejected as being fake, that they didn't grade, it's like, well, was this guy intentionally trying to submit stuff to BGS in order to do some damage, right? And there are a lot of questions throughout this whole process. And if that is true and that guy has done that and he has submitted some of these test print cards that he previously sold on his eBay page, you know, he should be a little bit careful, because I'd imagine BGS are probably going to take some next steps on, you know, contacting authorities and all that kind of stuff, because that is fraud. And you can sort of, you know, play it down all you want, but it involves mail fraud, it involves, you know, deceit to sell fake goods and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to sort of unpack there, and it's one that I hope we get, you know, more information on. And I'm curious to see what Ben can disclose. I'm gonna imagine that BGS are probably going to make this a little bit difficult for him and not allow him to talk through a heck of a lot, but he will be doing an interview, like I said, and we can chat through this amongst many others, because it's quite, you know, an unfortunate situation. But I think the one silver lining is we've got like a positive outcome for him, right? Because if I didn't make my videos, had I not seen Adam's initial reel, if Adam didn't make those videos in the first place, none of this, you know, would have happened. This guy probably would have been stuck owning this card, and it would have been very hard to get the attention of BGS, you know, in the first place. Like you guys would have seen on this channel, there are a number of cards that I've raised with BGS and try to get their attention on that I've got zero response on, which has been incredibly disappointing. And to name some of them, it's like this Patrick Mahomes rookie patch order that you can see on screen right now. It's patch swapped. They graded both the 1/1s and didn't realize they'd already graded the card, but they basically had a patch swap card. And then, you know, through a bit more research through myself and Orban35 and all that kind of stuff, some of these other cards that I was raising concerns around, like this Lamar Jackson and all this kind of stuff, turns out were all part of the same submission. So these cards are still certified by BGS. They've not done anything about it, but I've not been able to get a response. So if you're sort of sitting there thinking, well, Daniel, you and Adam are maybe taking too much credit for trying to get a solution to this situation, well, it's like, well, no, because we've got an example there of all these other cards that have been raised in the past that haven't really, you know, gone anywhere and got any resolution to. And, you know, we're just fortunate in this situation that it's sort of happened. So that's a bit of a silver lining. One of the other things that I've sort of asked Ben to do, if he can get a contact with BGS so I can have a chat with him about some of these things, because like I said, that Patrick Mahomes one is insane, and there's some you know, half a dozen others part of the same submission that also look incredibly suspicious that are, you know, I'm pretty comfortable in saying are also patch swapped. So, you know, I'm rambling now, but I think that's a silver lining. Like I sort of said already a few times now, drop what questions you want me to ask Ben in that interview, the buyer of this card. Let me know what you sort of want to talk to with him, and then we can jump into it within the interview. Don't be afraid to ask tough questions. I know some of you guys might have some suspicions around him and the seller working together. I had those initially as well, and there were some red flags there and all that kind of stuff, not on, you know, Ben's side necessarily, but on the seller's side for sure. And that's pretty fair too. So if you want those questions asked of him, we can ask them. He's pretty open and transparent about the whole situation. So hopefully we can get, you know, a good discussion going. So, you know, as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.